you first of all introduce yourselves?
Billy Howerdel.
Maynard. Okay, well, let's start by the most obvious question. Could you tell, in short, the story of A Perfect Circle? How did it start, and etc., etc.?
I originally started writing songs when I started playing guitar in 88, some years ago, and from there got into working in the music industry, so I could kind of learn the ropes a little bit quicker. I wanted to be a musician at that time, but I thought, I'd get a little farther by working behind the scenes. So that's what I did. I started working for bands. I worked for a band called Fishbone. Maynard was opening up with Tool at that time, and this was 92, 93. And became friends, and some years later kind of bumped into each other at a bar in Hollywood and kind of exchanged numbers and kept in contact. Became roommates. Tool went into studio, and I was kind of getting out of teching at that time. I had been doing it for years, and to compromise, I said, if I could bring my studio in the studio with you, I'll go work for you. That's what I did, and at the time he had heard some of the music I was working on, and he liked it and wanted to sing on it, and then from there kind of had an idea of what I was going to have for a voice. So putting together a band took years again. I met Paz, who's playing bass live with us. She was friends with Adam from Tool. Met her about a year after the Anima record, and then a year after that I met Josh Freeze, and I was working on a Guns N' Roses project, and he was trying out as a drummer. I was doing Pro Tools programming at the time. And then I met Troy about a year after that. So it's been this kind of spaced out thing over 4 years of meeting, the right people. I met people in between, and we've played with people in between, but the unit as it sits now, that's how we kind of came together. And everyone's very busy with everything else they do, and they took the time to do this. It came together. The timing was right somehow. It's hard to get good musicians to come together because they're good and they're desirable, and they're always out doing other things. So it's not such an easy thing to get a bunch of people that are actually good in one room.
Did you record this album on Pro Tools as well? You mix it on Pro Tools?
It's recorded totally with Logical Audio as a sequencer and Pro Tools hardware. It's mixed onto tape, though. We transferred. We not to tape. We mixed it straight from there onto analog tape, the final step.
Because the production sounds brilliant. I was listening to it. It was blown away.
Thanks. Yeah, it's definitely possible. The digital realm is, on top of sounding really good, it's just so flexible. It's as much a tool and an instrument to me as a guitar or keyboard is. It's certainly as expressive or more so.
I'm not an expert, but when I was listening to it, this sounds at least as good as some Pink Floyd albums I really like. I mean, I know they were in studios for a couple of years sometimes.
Yeah. And I was too. I mean, I'd worked on this little by little over some years, but the real meat of the recording took place in '99. So, and that's another reason. I mean, I got into the business to learn the ropes and learn skills, and that's what I did. I went from guitar teching to working on the computer and just Pro Tools programming. So on the Guns N' Roses project, I did a lot of work down there, and I learned a lot of things about the up-and-coming technology, and I really kept up on it. So here we are, and I got to do it pretty much in the luxury of my own house, which isn't that luxurious, but it's luxurious in that no one's standing over your head saying $2,000 a day, let's go, to me. So it's good, but in that same breath, you can say that it can become very paralyzing and say, you got all the time in the world. Well, what's stopping you from taking all the time in the world? You have to make a choice, that leap of faith, and just say, this is good enough. Let's put it out.
And then it came out and entered the American charts at 4, I think, which is kind of like a record for a debut album of a rock artist, they say. You can read it everywhere. And in what way does it affect you guys? Because do you really care about the success this album has right now, just from the beginning, or?
Yeah, I mean, I care about it. I certainly don't want it to be a flop, but worked hard on it, and we're out here trying to promote it and do our best with that. So, I mean, I'm proud of the record. I wouldn't be that way if it was something that was contrived and meant to be something else and written for another reason. But it's just purely songs that were written to be expressive from the heart, and be honestly what we wanted to do, and not written to be, catchy or kind of catch up with what's going on. So whatever success that comes from it, I welcome it. As long as it's, I'm sure there's negatives within that, but for some reason I don't see them right now, and I say thank you to the success so far. So,
how do you guys work? I mean, you were writing on the music, and you are co-writing the lyrics as well, right? How does it work? I mean, you come up with a singing line, and then you come up with the words, or?
No, he pretty much wrote the music, and I would just come up with the vocal melodies, and then construct words out of the sounds.
Because you got the tape from the music, and you were really into it. You were like, "Hey man, can I sing on this?"
Exactly.
And I mean, it's a really. Did you expect it to turn out like this as it is? Because it's such a unity.
Well, I don't really think it's done yet. I think that the songs are still evolving as we go. So I'm not really sure if I could say that I know what they're like yet. They're still, each day we play them, we kind of adjust the subtleties a little bit. So
you change your music while playing?
I mean, a little bit. The players are playing live. It's a little bit different than how it was recorded in the studio. That gives a little bit different interpretation slightly, and something like 3 Libras, for instance, there's no string. We've done strings a couple times, just to have guest bass player, and then Paz will play strings, and our sister and brother play as well. And they came up and we did that a few times. But like that song in particular, Troy will take a more atmospheric, textural approach to the song than what was recorded on the record. So right there, it's a little different. The energy certainly gets different when you play live. Even the slower songs get to be a little bit more pumped up. And yeah, you just start exploring, and some of it comes from boredom, I'm sure, but some of it comes from the ability just that you can. The basis is still there, you'll recognize the song, but it's fun, and it keeps you interested.
I can also imagine if you work for music for such a long period that you will get the impression that you're never done.
In a way, yeah. It's funny, I just listened to the record about 3 days ago, and it was very interesting to hear it again. I haven't listened to it in a while, and it seems like it's someone else's a little bit, like it's out of my hands, because there is nothing, like it's done. The record's done. That piece of or CD or whatever, that part's done, and I'm happy with it. There's so little I would change. I mean, it's not even to mention. It's I don't know. I'm happy with the way it comes out, and I'm happy with what we're doing now live. And I think the live thing certainly is as good as the record. It's just another part. It's just different.
Talk about the lyrics for a while. It's once again it's a real Maynard lyrics. Just like it's not easy to understand. They're biblical, metaphorical. So there are what I was looking to all the names of the songs, and then I saw, well, there are at least 3 biblical names of the songs, like Thomas, Judith, Magdalena. Why is that?
I think these names have a larger scope of reference, just metaphorically, mythologically. Speaking in archetypes, they tend to paint a wider brushstroke than just a specific name that has no reference like that. The songs themselves are about groups of individuals or specific individuals that I've come in contact with and had relationships with, and the dynamic and the energy of that relationship, coincidentally or not, is very similar to those mythological stories. So which came first, I don't know. But
one of the most striking or lyrics I thought was like the song Magdalena, where you use like a real biblical story, like about the temple and throwing the dollar to the temple, etc., to like explore your love for a certain kind of man or woman. And in what way do you write those songs? Because it seems to be it's not easy to understand as a listener to it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that song in particular would be very specific if you've done any kind of studies on the whole Magdalene principle. In the Western guess Christianity. There's a lot of controversy surrounding the role of Mary Magdalene, and I guess if anyone is really interested in exploring that song, maybe start there. Start exploring some of the more radical publications surrounding her role 2,000 years ago, what it was, whether was it a whore or was it not. In my opinion, she wasn't. But the parallel, of course, of all her activities and all that particular house, Temple of Ishtar, pretty much the Catholic Church destroyed any remnants of that, and all you really see of it now is strip clubs. I mean, it's about the only remnant of that temple of worship that worship the feminine form, the Mother Earth, the power of regeneration, reproduction. The only place you see that now is in a very almost negative sense in strip clubs. It's been pushed down.
You guys have been touring now with a lot of bands, Nine Inch Nails, for example. I heard a lot of guys that saw the show already. It was kind of like, well, they're like exploding of joy because they really like the intensity of it. How do you guys feel about the tour so far?
I think it's going really well. I think the Nails tour in particular was the best thing that could have happened to us at the time. I got to play to an audience of people who obviously, in my opinion, like good music, and playing to a very large audience from 12 to 25,000 seat venues every night for 10 weeks. And the audience was very generous and responded well. And from there, I'm sure that helped us, and hopefully we helped them in a little bit, in a sort of way. I'm sure just that's the word support in itself. But I was very proud to be on that tour, and coming over here, I think we have a little bit more work to do. I think that Maynard's work with Tool is a little bit bigger in the States than it would be here, and we have some more groundwork to do, and I can feel that. And so far, it's been going really well. And I think the crowds have been very gracious, but a little bit more like they were in the beginning when we did club shows, a little bit just checking it out and letting it sink in. Don't know quite how to take it. And on a festival situation, you're mixed with a lot of other bands, eclectic mix. So you're getting bombarded with a jazz band right before you, and then you're thrown into that, and you throw people off a little bit. So it's going good though, and it's fun. It definitely is interesting. I'm glad it went the way it did though, because on the States, we're playing big places. You get our act fine-tuned, and then we got to come over here when it's not such a fine-tuned thing. You're thrust up into a stage with no sound check and everything, and luckily we've got it together before that, and I'm happy with the way we're sounding live. So,
because on a lot of festivals, you're put together on one stage with bands, of which you could suggest that they play for the money. They do I read a lot of interviews of you guys, and you go like, well, the problem right now with the music industry is that there are not that many bands that try to make music from the heart and are just trying to make music because right now this kind of music is popular, etc., etc. Is that your position in the music industry? Because
there's definitely a lot of bands out there that they're not really bands, they're just kind of used car salesmen or some kind of entrepreneurs in some way, filling in gaps. They figured out a way to put together some ridiculous clowns to go out and jump around, and they kind of just put a backbeat to it, and it's almost like eating air. It's just, there's nothing to it. But for some reason it's successful, and it just seems like if there were more people that were really kind of coming from the heart to just step up, make the music, don't worry about where it's going to land, just right from the heart. The more that happens, the more we're going to fill in the spaces, because there's only a finite number of spaces when it comes to like this industry. There's only so much shelf space. There's only so many dollars to be spent on records. So if you just make good music from the heart, this other crap will disappear, because it's a supply and demand. If somebody really is writing something that's genuine and true, it's going to exceed. I would think it would excel. Maybe I'm just an absolute idiot. Maybe I'm pie in the sky, rationalizing some kind of romantic behavior here. But it seems to me good music will eventually beat the bad music if there was any good music. So,
what sort of music do you like?
Massive Attack and Portishead, Tricky. I like Bjork. He likes Bjork. And it seems like those bands are doing. I think, in my opinion, the stuff that's going on with Tricky and Massive Attack and Portishead is kind of it's the future. It's the future of music.
In what way?
Kind of like, and now you can look in hindsight for all the techno and that kind of music now, the borderline trip hop and techno stuff, and look back and go, well, Kraftwerk was doing this many years ago, and you can point at Kraftwerk, 5-10 years ago. That's where it's going, right there. Well, now it's here, like all the raves, or that's where all the tickets are going. Kids are just going to the raves, and it's a whole another realm of music and subculture, and it's not even a subculture anymore. It's like a major cornerstone, especially here in Europe. So I would think, looking at Massive Attack and Tricky and Portishead and that kind of stuff, that's a cornerstone of something big coming.
Because it looks to me like the things that Ministry were doing or the Roses were doing, like so many years ago, are really popular now, or mainstream now. I mean, and then you see that the bands who manage to bring it really commercially get the most success.
Yeah, well, that's usually the case with anything. So I think the trick is to absorb it in a real way, and then don't for lack of a better word, sell out. But that's not. It's such a vague, ridiculous term.
Sell out. Maybe you have to keep control.
Well, I think that's the biggest problem, is that for me, if I can sleep at night with the decisions that I've made that day, then I'm okay with that. And the problem is these. I don't know if there's a genuinely true evil out there, but people, the bands that are really popular now, they can sleep at night with these horrible decisions that just seem so empty. So I guess they're not really selling out. They're just they can live with themselves, and they can make these decisions without feeling like they've just one step closer to some kind of void. But maybe it's our own fault. Maybe just capitalism in general has kind of robbed us of our ability to make wise decisions from the heart.
Okay, final question. How will it turn out with Perfect Circle in the next few months? Because you'll keep on touring, etc. But for example, you have something else to do also. How will it go? Because it's exploding right now, so you must be thinking about it.
Yeah, we there's things to take in consideration. Maynard's got it. He's going to go back and work with the Tool guys for a bit. So we're going to finish up our thing in mid-September. We're here in Europe for another week. Go to Australia for about a week or so. Go to Japan, then do a Canadian tour, then a 3-week American tour. And that brings us to mid-September. And then give him some time to finish up with the Tool stuff, get back in the new year in January, and go out and tour again. And hopefully at that time we'll have built up a fan base to do, a little bit bigger tour and do some things we would like to do with production and make it our own personal show instead of just a support thing. And that should be, if all goes well, like start in January and get done around May, maybe April. And we'll just have this leapfrog schedule for a little while and try and give each other space and work it out.
You had a lot of time to work on this album. I mean, you like you told me, you had a lot of years to work on your music. And will you take more time for your next album, or the same? Or
well, I have been working on a lot of other songs for another record, or the next record, or maybe another project where I'm singing on, just like these songs, alongside them. Some of them have started now. I think I've written a few, 4 things since I've started touring in April that I like. But there's a lot of songs that I wanted to do that I've written like in the same pot with these. I've got kind of this bank account of songs that these seemed appropriate together. There's others that I find I've got a group that are kind of gelling well together, but nothing's really recorded, like really done. They're more skeletons the way they were back before this year, before '99. So I want to do it in a similar way. Let it progress and let it just come as it comes. And there's plenty of time for that right now. So
one more short question for you, please. Suppose I don't know nothing about the biblical stuff, but I'm really interested in your lyrics. Where could I find information, or what do you suggest me to read?
Well, that's kind of hard to answer. Because I always write words to the music. The music itself it's kind of a higher form of language, and so it suggests particular universal dynamics, universal juxtapositions and relationships with, rhythm and notes, and those are reflected in our daily lives and in our relationships. So for me, the words are just my interpretations of those passages, those movements, the music itself. So I don't really know where to look. Look in your heart, because it's all there.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.